Chase, it's great to have you with us. So you want to take a second and introduce yourself to the audience?
I'm Chase Malone. I'm currently 25 years old. I'm originally from Connecticut and have been living in Florida for the greater part of my life. I'm a proud Hodgkin's lymphoma survivor.
Tell me a little bit about you're obviously here to talk about your sort of journey through cancer, but there's so many different elements and topics that we can talk about as it pertains to your story and what others may learn or how they may receive guidance from what you went through and the way that you navigated it. Before we get into all of that, do you want to share your sort of journey or your story with the audience as it relates to your cancer diagnosis and part of what came after?
Sure. So essentially, my story began when I was 21 years old. I graduated a year early from school to move to a new city, Miami Beach, and I was basically starting with a new company in the field that I always dreamed of being in. And while I was down there, at 21, I would work out. I was a fairly healthy individual, I would say. I wouldn't say I'm like an Olympic athlete or anything like that, but I was like a healthy guy, no history of any notable health problems or anything. And during my first summer there, I started experiencing a lot of odd symptoms and changes in my body, which initially I didn't think twice about. That really included this like persistent deep fatigue and this weight loss. I just started noticing it more and more. And in Miami, a lot of my friends were Cuban or Cuban immigrants or Cuban descendants. So we drank a lot of really strong, really good Cuban coffee. Even with that, throughout the day, I still just felt fatigued. And like I said, I wasn't really able to go to the gym as much as I was in college because I was working in an office. For me, what really did it was also at night, I would get really hot and sweat a lot. Not to the point where it was like my mind never went to, oh, you have cancer or something that's serious. And ultimately every symptom I had could be explained by something. So like the fatigue, I just thought, well, you're on the go, you're on the move, you're working hard, you're using your brain, it's normal to feel tired after a hard day's work. And then the weight loss, I was like, well, I'm 21, my metabolism is still pretty good. It wasn't like I was eating terribly unhealthy anyway, so I didn't really think much about it. What they call in the cancer world the night sweats, I just kind of brushed that off as, well, I'm living in Miami Beach.
It's
During
hot.
the summer, it's hot. Like
Yeah.
I sweat. I sweat sometimes, So none of that really prompted a huge concern of mine. But those were definitely telltale signs in retrospect of an oncoming lymphoma.
How did you discover that lymphoma?
It was brought to my attention. I noticed that there was a lump right on my collarbone area, and like I said, I was losing weight and already decently healthy, way more than I am now. But it was kind of visible. So I kind of had a noticeable lump. Felt like it was attached to my collarbone, but it was painless. So I was like, well, it doesn't hurt. I just concluded it must be a cyst of some sort or something just not,
Benign.
not yeah, something not serious. One of my friends was, he came from a family of doctors from Cuba and such, and they came to America. And so one day I was talking to him about it, and I was a little bit worried. And he got me in touch with his dad and his uncle and such on FaceTime, and I described it. I tried to show it to them the best I could. They kind of said, hey, you should probably get that checked out, but it's hard to know one way or the other what it is until you do the proper screening.
So, what is the correct screening for that? I mean, I'm guessing you didn't go directly to an oncologist, or did you?
I did not go directly to an oncologist. What I did was after speaking with my friends, family members who are internist doctors, they didn't tell me like, oh, it's no big deal. They were like, you should definitely follow up on that just to be safe. But it wasn't. And again, it wasn't like a direct physical examination or anything like that. So I called a urgent care facility in Miami Beach, and I'm not going to name any of them
Yeah.
or anything. But I called them and I said, hey, I have these symptoms, and although it wasn't apparent to me at the time, like everything could kind of be rationalized given my lifestyle and everything. I mainly focused on the bump, and they were like, well, to us it sounds like a cyst, because at the time I didn't have a lot of money and I just graduated from college. I was not trying to go to miss a day of work during the week, go to a urgent care, and I didn't even really know what they could do for me. So they kind of reassured me like, hey, it's more than likely a cyst. And if it's a cyst, they usually just treat it with antibiotics, or over time, it'll just go away on its own most of the time.
That's not what happened, though. How did they figure out that that's not what it was?
So I went back home. I had a few weeks before I started like my full-time position at the company. And so I had a few week intermission, I guess you could call it, before I went back to work. I was back at home with my family, and I had told them about it. It never crosses your mind that a healthy 21-year-old could be sick. And I think the pivotal moment for me was I was at the gym. I worked out all the time. I lifted weights and swam in the ocean and all that stuff. I was at the gym with my dad, and I just felt so weak due to this fatigue. And I'm like, well, I just knew. I think at the gym, I was like, I knew something's up, because I was barely able to get through like a easy to normal workout.
Yeah.
So at that point, I told my parents, and obviously they knew, like, I was for sure, like, there's something that we needed to look at. Again, cancer never crossed our mind, but we figured, okay, maybe there's just something. So we called my hometown, like, primary care provider, and we were able to get an appointment. First thing in the morning, they squeezed me in shortly after that gym session, and then the healthcare worker, she felt my neck and everything, and it wasn't large enough to, I guess, like immediately indicate it was a tumor. I kind of advocated for myself a little bit and said, let's just do what we need to do just to figure this out. Because initially, just like how the urgent care facility told me, she was just going to put me on antibiotics for a few weeks. But I knew that in a few weeks I was going to be starting work. I just needed like a firm answer, I think. And so I got set up with the local hospital to do a CT scan. I went to that, and then immediately coming out of the tube that you kind of go into, I could just tell on the technicians' faces, that they were like, you're going to hear from the doctor soon. Now, they're not diagnosing me with anything, but they just do scans all day. And
They knew by looking at it that something was amiss more than a cyst. That's what you speculated anyway.
yes, that's the assumption I was under. And again, like I said, they're not diagnosing me, but all they do is operate those X-ray machines and MRI machines and everything. After that, I got scheduled for a biopsy of this suspicious lump. I went in, met with the surgeon, and at the time, I'm just still like, this is surreal. It still can't be cancer. Like, I still generally, I just didn't know what having cancer would be like, but I felt that it probably isn't how I'm feeling right now. And then he did the biopsy, and I will tell you a funny story. He was preparing me, pre-operation for the biopsy. My father's in the room, and it's a surgeon. He's a really great guy. I asked him, I just said, because I had never really done surgeries or anything like that before. So I was like, well, how long is this going to take? I'm just curious. Like, is this like a...
Gonna have me in and out of here like 15 minutes?
Yeah, I didn't really know, because I
Yeah.
was I was new to the whole thing. And he said, well, do you want me to rush, or do you want me to do it right? And I was like,
Take your time.
yeah, take your time. But it was kind of in a way a relief, because he had great bedside manner.
Yeah.